What's up, everybody? We're back today with another Digimon deck profile video, getting in a couple more deck profiles for BT4 before BT5 launches next week. Today I have another really fun deck with that I was able to get 4th place in one of my locals this past month. This was a Digivolution source manipulation deck with some kind of memory gaining effects mixed in too. So it was a really fun combination of cards, and it kind of all centered around Regalecusmon, just because I thought he was a really cool Digimon to set with some neat effects, and it was just fun playing with some kind of more rogue deck strategies and different Digimon not a lot of people were using. And this deck is also kind of a precursor to a deck that should be really good next format, the Hex Blaumon Digimon lineup. If you haven't looked at them yet or into the next set, basically it's going to be something pretty similar to this, where all of his effects and his whole line focus on removing your Digimon's Digivolution sources and then getting extra effects or memory or draw power or security attack based on whether or not your opponent has Digimon with no Digivolution sources. Blue has always had a lot of Digimon that can kind of work around or take advantage of this idea of having sources removed from your opponent's Digimon, but Regalecusmon was the first Digimon that really caught my interest in that kind of strategy. So I decided to make a deck, had a lot of fun with it. Most of my matches have kind of just been more casual, but getting 4th place with it proved to me at least that was pretty fun and can kind of catch your opponents unsuspected. I had some weird ratios in this deck, so kind of bear with me as I go through it, and it's probably going to look very different than other people, and there's probably going to be a lot of cards people are going to be wondering why I didn't put in here. This is just what worked for me and what kind of felt the most fun for me with this strategy. But with that out of the way, let's get into the deck. For our Digitama, we have 4 copies of Bukamon as our main Digitama. If you don't know what he does, when attacking, trash the bottom Digivolution card of one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. So this right away allows us to Digivolve into someone with the ability to start cutting sources off of our opponent's Digimon. So it's pretty nice, and it just makes sure that almost every Digimon we hatch from the area will be able to start taking some sources away from Digimon, even if they're only low-level Digimon. And then we run 1 copy of Upamon when attacking. Once per turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards in play, trigger draw 1. So also really cool. You could run more copies of Upamon instead and make him your 4 of. This was just what worked most fun for me, since I don't actually have that many Digimon with Digimon removal sources in this deck. I kind of like run it a little bit different since I'm also kind of like focused on memory gaining effects. But so this worked, and it was just a good balance for my Digi-Eggs. Next up, we have our rookies, which in my opinion is where the deck is the most fun. So for our main rookie, we run 4 copies of the promo Gabumon. Really awesome card, probably going to be even more awesome next set. But his inheritable effect is once per turn during your turn, when you trash a Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon, gain 1 memory. Really awesome. Like I said, for me, this deck is a combination of source removal and memory gaining, just to kind of let you play a lot and try to like memory starve your opponent or just have really big turns for yourself. So this is really cool. We are going to be trying to remove source from our opponent's Digimon, and getting extra memory for that is super awesome. So he is the main rookie you're always going to want to see. Next up, we have another Gomamon. This is our Booster 1 Gomamon with the inheritable effect on deletion, gain 1 memory. Awesome. Another way to gain memory on your Digimon when they're dying, and just to try to prolong your turns, or also be able to end your opponent's turns. For example, if you have them on a blocker, your opponent blocks, and then suddenly you gain memory and you might be ending your turn. And then we also have 2 copies of the starter deck Blue Gomamon, who's just in there as a nice cheap to play vanilla 2 cost rookie. In addition to him, we also run 2 copies of Elecmon. I could have run 4 Gomamon or 4 Elecmon. I just like having 2 of each in case of, the Omnimon situation, so he doesn't delete all of your Digimon with the same name, if you have a couple with different names in there. And then rounding things off, just 2 copies of Gabumon, just because I liked having them in there. I like to throw at least like a couple whenever I make blue decks, just in case I need some card drawing situations, and it's nice if you ever have enough extra memory to throw down a rookie. Why not also get a card in there too? Next up, we have our level 4s. Once again, my deck has some weird ratios. Just bear with me. This is what worked for me. And part of the reason it has it is because I liked the flexibility of having a lot of different options in my deck, even if some of the Digimon I weren't going to be seeing every game, just because I don't run full copies of all of them. But first, we run 3 copies of Tobiumon. Really awesome, just super cheap level 4. 1 to digivolve into, 3 to play, so basically the cost of most rookies to throw down. So he's just cool to help you get more level 4s out there, help you quickly get back up to more level 6s, since we're trying to build up to Regalecusmon as quickly as we can. And then we also run 2 copies of Gorillamon. Same thing, nice because he's 1 to digivolve into, and then power wise he's just nice. 6,000 will dodge effects that would kill Digimon 5,000 or under, like Ultra S. And then we also run 2 copies of Leomon. I just, again, awesome on deletion, gain 2 memory. If you manage to digivolve him onto the Gomamon with the memory gaining effect, that means on deletion you could get 3 memory. Just really cool. Other option to digivolve into, especially if you're just going to crash him in your opponent's security. Even if he gets destroyed, awesome, you just get extra memory. Not something I necessarily always want to see, but like fun to come up into. Usually he's not going to be the main level 4 you want to digivolve into, since you're usually trying to just build up to Regalecusmon and either get effects useful for him or to turbo up into him. So he's not necessarily a Digimon you want to digivolve into unless you have to. If you're trying to build up to your main level 6s, he's more just a side champion you can throw out there once you already have your board kind of established. And then to finish things off, we of course run blockers because this is Digimon and we need blockers. So we just run 4 copies of Grizzlymon, just to make sure we can have blockers in there, and especially, you know, always helps with rookie rush and just protecting ourselves long enough to get our board set up. Now moving on to our level 5s, I run 3 copies of Monzaemon. Just super nice, cheap Digimon. I really like to be able to digivolve for as cheap as I can in this deck, especially since we already have so many ways to also gain memory, meaning we can get a lot of Digivolutions out usually pretty quickly and throw some stuff on the board. So I just really like having cheap cards in this deck. Also, you know, 5 cost, level 5 to play, not too bad. We run 3 copies of the starter deck WereGarurumon. Pretty awesome this deck. During your turn, while your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards, this Digimon gains security attack +1, so just going to help our Regalecusmon hit a little bit harder and get some extra security attack in there. And usually it's pretty easy in this deck if you manage to get the cards out quickly enough to get your opponents on the board with at least 1 Digimon, if not more, that don't have any sources on it. And then the third card, I run 3 copies of Shakkoumon. Just really awesome one. He can be treated as blue, so he can still digivolve up into your blue level 6. But then also during your opponent's turn, Digimon with no Digivolution cards gain security attack -1. This is super awesome for our Rookie Rush matchups, since he's just a very good anti-Rookie Rush card. And also just a super useful stall tactic and defense, especially for if you're playing against Mega Zoo, which isn't really a fun deck to play against with this deck, since you can't really remove their Digivolution sources if they're just throwing big stuff out there. But he is also able to help with that and kind of force our opponent to have to get rid of him before he's able to attack. So really good, and just a card with great value in this deck, since we're really easily able to set up situations where our opponents have multiple Digimon with no Digivolution cards. And now we move on to our level 6s. Our 1 blue level 6 that we are actually trying to digivolve into in this deck is just 4 copies of Regalecusmon. So if you don't know what he does and why he's so awesome, when attacking, trash the bottom Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon, and when you do, you can also trigger draw 1 and gain 1 memory. just awesome effect. Getting draw power and memory gain from one card, just a super awesome card. He doesn't really have the best attack power since he's only at 11,000. But even if you're able to just get 1 or 2 attacks on him, really cool. And just getting those extra cards and extra memory can usually help you keep it your turn or just extend your plays more, which is super nice. The other level 6 I choose to run in this deck is actually 4 copies of Puppetmon. So one of the problems with this deck is there's not a lot of forms of like strong removal. When I originally was testing out this deck with some friends, I was running a few copies of Omnimon. The problem was digivolving into Omnimon wasn't always the most reliable thing to do, and it didn't really synergize well with the rest of the deck. I had more level 6s at the start. I also was running Vikemon, since you can also take advantage of cards with no security, but he didn't really seem as good as Regalecusmon was. So I at first just tested a couple of Puppetmon and ended up really liking him, because, you know, stalling for your opponent, also has a gain 1 memory on attack, so kind of synergizes with the memory gain aspect of this deck. And Puppetmon's always just like a really nice stall card, and because it's pretty easy to be able to start your turn with 4 or more memory during the matches, just because of the ways we have to gain memory. Even if you do have to play him, it doesn't necessarily hurt as much as it does in other decks, because a lot of the times we're not, you know, throwing him down and putting your opponent straight to 10. A lot of times we can throw him down and keep our opponent from getting too much memory. And then just finishing off with our options of tamers, we run 4 copies of Hammerspark. Super nice. Just again, gain some extra memory on your turn, or if it's in security, it's always awesome when your opponents hit it and just suddenly end their turn, or are forced to end their turn early, and not play something as big that they were hoping to play. Then we have 2 copies of the 2-cost starter deck Mat. Super awesome. During start of your turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards, gain 1 memory. More often than not, that you are probably going to be triggering this effect and just starting your turn with an extra memory. If you get both of them out there, even better. And then we have 2 copies of the Blue Booster Set 1 Mat Ishida. Start of your turn, 2 or less memory. Set your memory at 3. Always good to have. And then during your turn, when you play a blue Digimon, you can suspend this tamer to trash the bottom Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. Super awesome. This is part of why we have so many cheap cards to play, like the Tobiumon, our 2-cost rookies, and like even Monzaemon sometimes can be good to play if you have the memory for it. Throw them down, get rid of a Digivolution source, and if we have any of our other cards out on the field that are able to gain memory from that, get even more memory on top of that. Super nice. I was running Cositus Breath in this deck at one point as the removal. And similar issue with like Omnimon, it just, for whatever reason, it wasn't really clicking with me at the deck. It wasn't reliable enough, or it was too expensive, which is kind of why I switched to the Puppetmon as kind of my form of not necessarily removal, but protection in this deck, since Puppetmon is just really good at walling off and can help me gain more memory on the following turn. And it's just a nice Digimon to have in the deck. And I kind of just give an example of why I play this deck the way I do, because I know a lot of similar decks that I've seen have a lot of other blue Digimon. There are a lot of Digimon out there like Angemon, who, you know, when their inheritable effect lets you also take more Digivolution sources off of Digimon. Or there's one of the versions of Zudomon where when you Digivolve into him, take 2 sources out away from the opponent. So this deck is actually pretty light on ways to remove sources from Digimon. Really, we just have the Mat, the Digitama, and our Regalecusmon himself. But the reason I'm running some of these cheaper champions and ultimates as opposed to ones with actual effects that kind of synergize better is just for the ability to Digivolve up to our main level 6 stat quickly. Let's say that I have a Mat and both versions of Mat already on the board. There were many times where it's super easy to just already start your turn with 4 memory, which is super awesome. So let's say I already had a Tobiumon on the board. I can Digivolve into Monzaemon for 2. That would set me to 2. If I have Hammerspark, I can go back to 3, Digivolve into Regalecusmon, be at 0, still my turn, then swing, use his effect, draw one, and then gain another memory. And then from there, I can go ahead and if I have like another rookie, maybe Digivolve him up into something to end the turn, play another cheap 3-cost rookie or 2-cost rookie, or if I have like another Tobiumon, just throw him out so I have another level 4 already on the board. Situations like that happened a lot where I was really able to just kind of take advantage of cheap costs and memory gaining effects, and it was just super nice to do. And my favorite version of this deck, even trying all those other Digimon that kind of had more source removal focused cards, still kind of felt like inconsistent and slow, and also hurt a lot when you're playing against opponents who don't necessarily rely on Digivolving up a lot, so like Megazoo or Rookie Rush. So for me, focusing more on the kind of like cheap cost and memory gain focusing aspect of it worked out a lot better for me. Next set, probably going to be running more of those Digimon like Angemon or Zudomon, or the Hexblaumon line himself, since that is kind of a more aggressive and reliable version of source removal. And Hexblaumon will probably kind of just replace Regalecusmon completely. I will probably try to make another deck that runs him, but Hexblaumon, if you don't know all his effects, really powerful. I believe you get jamming if your opponent has Digimon with no sources on it, and I think your opponent's Digimon with no sources can't attack, and also might not be able to block. So just overall, really sick, insanely powerful card. Probably going to be one of the main blue meta cards next set. So to talk really quickly about matchups, there's a few that aren't the best for this. Obviously, Rookie Rush and Megazoo are kind of just more annoying to play against, just because your whole thing, you want to like get all these awesome combos in where you're removing sources from your opponent's Digimon, and it's like, oh, I guess I'm not going to be doing this much this game. So it was more just like sad to me because I can't really take full advantage of the deck. I will say Rookie Rush wasn't too bad. That was probably an easier one to deal with. As long as you can manage to get your Shakkoumon out there quick. That was kind of like a more not too bad matchup. Megazoo is the harder one to deal with, because their Digimon are so powerful, and a lot of the level 7s they will Digivolve into either have straight destruction effects or effects like Chaosmon where they're able to then attack your Digimon. So Megazoo is probably one of the worst matchups I had from this. Shakkoumon does still help. And your Puppetmon, and you can still manage to win. I've won a couple of times against Megazoo with this, but it's probably one of the least favorable matchups. And then the other one is, of course, yellow has just been a really powerful deck this set. And I find that even if I'm removing sources against the yellow deck, it doesn't really mess with their strategy that much, as long as they have WereGarurumon on the board and are able to go into either Slash Angemon or WereGarurumon on top of that. They're going to be able to delete some of my Digimon, and I can't really get rid of those top ones, so it doesn't really stall their strategy too much, at least in the opportunities I've had to play against them. Outside of this deck was pretty fun against most of them. It's really nice against red decks, since usually, they're trying to get all those extra buffs with either DP or security, and denying them that is super satisfying. It can be good for black, because black, again, also usually relies on a lot of, getting jamming or reboot or blocker from inheritables. Going against green, green is just kind of like more a race to see who can build up their board fastest and get the most secured. Probably not one of the best matchups. And then purple, I actually don't think I've ended up running into any purple decks with this matchup. So I don't really have too much to say against purple. I'm not sure how great it would be. Purple might have enough swarming to get around this deck, but I'm not really sure. And that is it for the deck profile. Hope you all enjoyed it. Like I said, it was kind of just more of an unusual deck with weird kind of combinations of Digimon and ratios in it. But because of that, I felt like I usually always had a card good for different situations. And a lot of times I would catch my opponents off guard with just different cards I would throw in there that they might not be expecting. So like the Puppetmon. And yeah, it's just really fun deck. I enjoyed playing it. Not the most competitive, but definitely One that I was able to catch people off guard with, and definitely one that's really fun to play. Hope you all enjoyed the video. We'll have more videos coming out very soon. I'm going to be trying to put out BT5 deck profile videos much earlier than I did for this set, so keep an eye out for those. Should be a really fun format. Going to be seeing way too many different variations of Omnimon decks, but it'll be fun. Hope you all have a good one.